Good evening and welcome to the BDF Show, Kansas Day, January 29th, 2024. And Kansas was founded on this day in 1861. Well, was brought into the Union in 1861 on this date. And it's 163 years old today. So, okay. Let me. Okay. Kansas, constituent state of the United States of America. It is bounded by Nebraska to the north, Missouri to the east, Oklahoma to the south, and Colorado to the west. Lying amid the westward rising landscape of the Great Plains of the North American continent, Kansas became the 34th state on January 29th, 1861. In that year, the capital was located in Topeka by popular election, outpolling nearby Lawrence by some 2,700 votes. The state's name is derived from that of the Kansa or Call, whose name comes from a Siouan language phrase meaning people of the south wind. The geographic center of the 48 coterminous United States is marked by a limestone shaft and a flag located in the pasture near Lebanon, Kansas, close to the Nebraska border. Some 40 miles, 65 kilometers to the south is the magnetic or geodetic center of the terrestrial mass of North America. This is the reference point for all land survey in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Kansas was once seen as the country's agricultural heartland. Some 9/10 of the state's land area is still used for agricultural purposes. Wichita is the state's largest city, is known locally as the air capital of the world because of its longtime status as a major center of production for general aviation aircraft. Tourism, financial services, and governmental are also a major sector of the employment. Area 82,278 square miles, 213,100 square kilometer. Population 2020, 2,937,880. 2023 estimate, 2,940,546. Kansas has been characterized as a featureless plain, but its topography is quite varied. The land rises slowly but steadily from some 680 feet, 210 meters above sea level along the Verdigris River in the southeast to just above 4,000 feet, 1,200 meters near the Colorado border. The state's mean elevation is about 2,000 feet, 610 meters. The far western section consists of high plains with a few naturally occurring trees and appeared flat and endless. Actually, these plains are creased with shallow gullies called draws, which are the product of millennia of erosion and are the locale of some of the state's most striking geological formations. Castle Rock, south of Quinter, consists of chalk spires rising high above the level plains. Monument Rocks, a few miles to the west, resemble sphinxes. Near Jetmore is Horse Thief Canyon, which has been linked to the Grand Canyon in miniature. Under irrigation, southwestern Kansas has come to produce truck crops and sugar beets. Northeastern Kansas, once covered by the glacier that crept over most of the northern United States, is hilly and timbered with many creeks and springs. The southeast, lying near the foothills of the Ozark Mountain, is roughly and covered in parts with scrub oak. In south central Kansas, near Medicine Lodge, are the Gypsum Hills, which resemble the means of the Southwest and are named for the gypsum found in them. In east central Kansas, the Flint Hills stretch from north to south, gentle rolling, largely treeless and covered with blue streams. They provide the only extensive unplowed tract of true prairie remaining in the United States. Drainage. The principal rivers are the Kansas and the Arkansas. Tributaries of the Kansas are the Big Blue, the Republican, the Solomon, and the Saline, and the Smoky Hill, all in northern Kansas. The Arkansas flows into the state of from Colorado and winds through the southwestern and south central Kansas, continuing through Oklahoma and Arkansas to the Mississippi River. Tributaries of the Arkansas are the Cimarron, the Verdigris, and the Neosho Grand. Kansas has a few natural lakes, but a large number of man-made reservoirs has been constructed throughout the state. Among the largest are Clinton Reservoir near Lawrence, Milford Reservoir west of Manhattan, and Wilson Reservoir in roughly the center of the state. Soils. Millions of years ago, much of Kansas was the floor of an inland sea. The land was built up by the deposit of soil and vegetable matter from streams feeding the sea. The residual soil with heavy concentrations of limestone and gypsum is among the most fertile in the world, and its prehistoric fossils of great importance has been found. Kansas has a temperature but continental climate, a temperate but continental climate with great extremes between summer and winter temperatures, but few long periods of extreme hot or cold. The annual average temperature is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius. The growing season ranges from mid-April to mid-September. Normal annual precipitation ranges from less than 20 inches, 500 millimeter, to the west in the west to more than 40 inches, 1,000 millimeter in the southeast, with a statewide average of slightly more than 25 inches, 635 millimeter. Plant and animal life. Buffalo grass is native in the west and central areas of the state. Blue stem around the Flint Hills and bluegrass in the east. Wildflowers of many kinds are found in the parts of the state, and sunflowers grow in profusion. Kansas is popularly known as the Sunflower State. The cottonwood, the state tree, grows throughout Kansas, while in the northeast there are many oak, walnut, and maple trees, as well as cedar and elm. Western Kansas abounds in quail and pheasants and has the largest population of prairie chickens, grouse, in North America. Deer, once almost extinct, were protected by law for many years and have multiplied to the degree that hunting again has been allowed. Bison, which had nearly disappeared from Kansas has increased in number and are raised on ranches and farms throughout the state. Several large herds are located on public preserves in the southwestern portion of the state. People of Kansas, population composition. Kansas early settlers were principally anti-slavery New Englanders of British ancestry. After the American Civil War and with the building of the railroads, many Central Europeans were attracted by the promise of jobs laying tracks and of free land when the jobs were finished. Small communities populated by citizens of predominantly Russian, Bohemian, German, or Scandinavian ancestry still dot the state. The original language has largely disappeared, although here and there church services are still conducted in German or Swedish, and a few communities hold festivals each year at which the old folkways, foods, and languages are featured. African Americans, mostly from the deep South, arrived in numbers in the 1870s, establishing farming settlements such as Nicodemus in the northwestern part of the state. During World War II, there was an influx of military personnel and aircraft workers, many of whom remain. There is now a small but growing Hispanic minority, less than 1/10 of the population, and a slightly smaller proportions of African Americans. The state is mainly Protestant, with large communities of Methodists, Baptists, and Lutherans. Virtually every denomination and sect is represented in the state, including such rare groups as the Amish and the Dunkard Brethren. Roman Catholics makes up nearly all of the remaining religious adherents. Hey, PSV! Settlement patterns. Most western Kansas farms or ranches are large, covering not less than one section, a square mile, or 640 acres, 259 hectare. Well, I can't say that. I can't pronounce it. Of land through a farmer's holdings may not always be contiguous. Eastern Kansas begins with small farms, some of no more than 40 acres, but these have grown. State law prohibits corporations, trusts, limited liability companies, limited liability partnerships, or corporate partnerships from owning or acquiring any agricultural land in the state, leaving such ownership the province of family businesses. However, corporate farming has made inroads following the passage of a proviso that allows counties a degree of choice in the matter. Small towns serve as local commercial centers. Many of the small cities, especially in the West, offer unexpected cultural and commercial resources, perhaps because they often lie far apart and draw from large trade territories. In the East, the cities are older, closer together, and generally less progressive, through most of them are attractive with broad, well-shaded residential streets and downtown shopping facilities. Wichita, the largest city, has The state's largest buildings, biggest industries, and most venturous businesses in Topeka. Well, in Topeka, where state government once was the largest employer, more people now have non-governmental service jobs. Kansas City, Kansas is contiguous with its larger neighbor, Kansas City, Missouri, and contains a significant part of the industrial complex of that region. It does neighboring Johnson County. Overland Park in Johnson County was incorporated as a city only in 1960, but by the end of the 20th century had overtaken even Kansas City in population. Several large corporations are based there. Leavenworth, the state's oldest city, is built around governmental institutions, including an army post at Fort Leavenworth, a federal prison, a state penitentiary in the bordering city of Lansing, and a veterans hospital. Lawrence, home of the state's largest university, depends on the school for its economy, though the city has worked successfully to attract high technology and light manufacturing industry. Most of the other cities depend on farm trade and agricultural related business. Kansas suffered during most of its history from two kinds of regionalism, one that pits rural against city dwellers, and another that sets the East against the West. The two are related in that none of the state's principal cities is in the West. More thinly populated than the East, Western Kansas has always feared and fought Eastern domination, while the East often has ignored the West. The Wichita metropolitan area accounts for more than one-fifth of the state's population. The Kansas City, Lawrence, Topeka area of northeastern Kansas, containing three metropolitan areas, is even more populous and is in the center of much industry. Rival between these two urban areas is obviously in the state legislature. People from the rural area, most farmers, ranchers, and owners of the small business, as well as residents from the smaller towns, have tended to be distrust the city, often bringing about an impasse in the state legislature. Well, there's more, but my voice is getting tired. Let's see. Let's see. Since my voice is getting tired, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Have a magical evening and a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Bye bye.